This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew. It's episode 345 of the Craft Beer and Brewing Podcast. And for this week's episode, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I've never been to Arizona for the podcast yet, and I was thinking about it late last year as we went through our best in beer. And we had two breweries here in Phoenix, Arizona score incredibly well with our blind judges and earn spots in our best beers of 2023. One of those was Arizona Wilderness Jitterbug Perfume, which scored a perfect 100 with our judges, one of 3 or 4. And so that is where I am today, talking with Brad Miles, head of production or head brewer, and Nick Pauley, the wood cellar manager of Arizona Wilderness. Welcome to the podcast, Brad.
Thanks. Good to be here.
And welcome back to the podcast, Nick.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm stoked.
A little bit of explanation. Nick was at Fair Isle when we did that podcast. I think that was, either 2020 or 2021, that kind of pandemic era where we had a remote conversation. Anyway, not a crazy surprise since we've all loved your beers at Fair Isle, and it's great to see that back here, this is your second turn back at Arizona Wilderness, that now here in the wood cellar, also making beautiful beers, expressive beers, flavorful beers that are moving our extremely judgmental judges.
Awesome. Thank you.
So we're going to talk about two things, two main topics on this episode. We're going to talk about the wood cellar program here, spontaneous beer, and then also using these ingredients in such creative ways like you did with Jitterbug Perfume. We're also going to keep that ingredient theme going on the clean beer side and talk about the way that Arizona Wilderness is using grain, whether it's perennial grain like Kernza or using Sonoran wheat, some two-row barley grown here in Arizona, and the way that Arizona Wilderness has been working with growers to sustain agriculture in this very, very dry climate, but to do it also efficiently, that uses resources in the right kind of way, but it also, hits the flavor goals for the beer that you all make. We're going to talk about both of those things. Before we do that, at G&D Chillers, they always strive to build great chillers. Partner with them as you build great beer. But don't take it from me. Here's what Andy Joint of Big Grove Brewery has to say.
Hey, this is Andy Joint of Big Grove Brewery. We've been using G&D Chillers from the beginning. And from our original 3.5 barrel pub system up to our production brewery, we've been able to rely on G&D to provide a high quality chiller, help us with design and layout, and provide support whenever we need it.
That's right. Choose G&D Chillers on your next expansion or brewery startup and receive 1 free year of remote control and monitoring of your new G&D chiller. And turnkey brewery systems, production line design services, retrofitting processing systems. ProBrew can do all of this and more with any brewery, old or new, small or large. With an expansive list of breweries already served, their engineering team prides itself on providing a true turnkey solution built for your entire production line that can be easily customized to fit your operation. For more information, fill out their contact form at www.probrew.com or email contact us at probrew.com to learn exactly how they can take your operations to the next level. ProBrew, brew your beer. Also, you may have heard of Old Orchard, but have you heard of their newest flavors? That's right, Berry Blend, Blood Orange, Lemonade, and Tart Cherry are the latest additions to their lineup of flavored craft juice concentrate blends. Old Orchard's R&D team can also formulate custom blends unique to your needs. To learn more and request your free samples, head on over to oldorchard.com/brewer. All right, Brad, we've already heard Nick's story, and if anyone wants to go listen to that, go back and listen to that old Fair Isle episode. Not to make light of it, Nick, but we've already covered that history. Why don't we talk about your history? It's
Sure.
it's quite an impressive one. Stint at Firestone Walkers doing R&D. It's something.
Yeah, we'll go back to the beginning. I was always kind of interested in fermentation, but I thought I had to get that business degree. So I was in college in Vegas for business, worked in the casino industry for like 4 or 5 years, and the whole time I was home brewing and just kind of got sick of it. I was working 410s, so I went and got a part-time job 3 days a week at Refuge Brewing Company in Temecula. First day in, I knew that was it. That's what I had to do, and I spent 8 hours cleaning kegs. So I just kind of grinded, got the experience, and then told my wife, I'm like, hey, we
Refuge, connected to the SS Brewtech crew.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I was the guinea pig on the
right.
SS Brewtech systems. Yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, and then wanted to go full time, and just kind of started. My journey to Firestone was pretty quick. Just started looking for full time jobs. Couldn't really find one. Applied to Firestone on a Tuesday. Got a call back on Wednesday. Had a working interview on the next Monday, and then started the Monday after that. And then I was there, started in the cellar, worked my way up to the brew house, started filtering, managed the yeast for a little while. Then my last stint there, I was doing new product development and R&D. And I was there for a total of 8 years, and now I'm here, Arizona Wilderness. Yeah.
What brought you to Arizona?
A few things, I wanted to kind of branch out a little bit. I'd always worked. I mean, I did the small stint at Refuge, but I wanted to be more connected to the consumer of the beer that I was producing, and I just had never done it. I had never been the head brewer somewhere or doing my own recipes, so I just wanted that experience doing that. I also have a young family, and we were kind of looking to place a little bit more affordable as well. And I'd known John and Pat from the Invitational and the festival circuit, and I saw that job pop up and applied, and then I was here. So.
And the scale of Arizona Wilderness is a little bit different than the scale of Firestone.
A little
Walker.
bit different. Our yearly production's like 2 of their big tanks. So.
What is the yearly production here?
We're about 3,000, between 3 and 3,500 a year. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all made out of the brew pub here in Gilbert, Arizona.
Out of that little 15 barrel we're pumping out.
For now.
Yeah. We have a new production spot that hopefully construction will start here pretty soon.
Well, tell me a little bit about the broader Arizona Wilderness story. The vision behind the brewery, and then what the kind of what was the impetus behind the brewery, and what are some of the values that drive it today?
So I don't know too much of how John and Pat started it, but I know what it is now, and I think it's kind of changed a lot since then. We're trying to use beer to kind of better the environment, educate people, create community and local supply chains within that community. Yeah, I think Nick could speak to it a little bit. He has a little bit more experience here, but...
I do, but no one would put it, I think, better than John or Pat.
Yeah.
John has a certain way of speaking about things from the heart. It's awesome. But so I know that John started homebrewing in his garage, as kind of like most of us do, right? And would just kind of brew up these kind of wacky brews that we still kind of do to this day. There's a lot of recipes still in place that we brew 10 years later. So, and then he, was kind of always the business side of things, more so than the brewing side. So he found a professional brewer in Pat, Ware, the other co-owner, and I don't know how it happened, but they got the money and kind of found this perfect little spot, old Brugger's Bagels here in Gilbert, and that's kind of where it all started. And
I want to correct you a little bit, Jamie. Those 2 breweries that you were talking about are all in Gilbert, not Phoenix.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Gilbert's becoming its own little brewing community.
Even more crazy.
Yeah.
Can you get pedantic on me about it? Okay. It's not Mesa. It's not Chandler.
Right.
It's Gilbert.
Gilbert. Yeah.
All right. We're in the greater Phoenix metro area.
There you go.
Yeah.
It all counts. But it's also nice to see, and we noticed that with our best in beer this year, strange concentrations, of places like Central North Carolina. I think there were 5 different pairs of best in beers that came from similar places. And
cool.
I don't know how to explain that necessarily. I think some of it goes back to, if your peers are paying attention to something, then you also start paying attention to something. And so, it's like GABF entries. Well, if your neighbor across across town is entering GABF and winning medals, you kind of want to too, right? And I think that some of that happens with us, where somebody's getting, beers scored highly in the magazine. You want to, we'll give it our shot too. And so maybe that's what drives some of this. I don't know, but it's neat to see these little clusters of cool brewing. But I think there's also something broader that high quality competition makes everyone brew better beer. And so when you find these clusters, it's not a surprise, that around Firestone Walker in Central California, you have all of these amazing brewers making great. You have to. You can't survive unless you make great beer.
Yeah.
And so
most of us brewers are all beer fans at heart, and we're going to the place after work down the street and tasting their great beer, and then taking inspiration from that. So,
and you want to, in a friendly way, just try to make yours a little bit better.
Exactly.
It's
feedback loop.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I think about it. I was reading. I mentioned it in one of my editor's notes in the magazine. There's this beautiful book that they've put together about Steve Jobs, and one of the things that that struck me. And I'm a longtime Apple fanboy, so this is not anything crazy, But one of the things he said was something into the effect of, quality. When you focus on making something of quality, it expresses your love of humanity. That, it's not just about competition. You make something beautiful for the world because we love humanity and we love this existence that we're all creating together. And if you care about that, the thing that we're all building together, you care about making it well. And you care about putting something out there that is done in that beautiful way. And so that, I think, speaks to the best side of craft beer. Maybe not all craft beer, but the best side of craft beer.
Yeah.
And, those breweries that are so focused, and those brewers, not just commercial breweries, but brewers in general, so focused on making beautiful beers. And so it is, these are, it is expressing this love of humanity itself. Anyway, I'm getting theoretical here, and we should talk more about brewing. And like I said, we want to talk about both the spontaneous and wild sides here. We're sitting right now in the wood cellar, surrounded by barrels. You've got spontaneous beer bubbling over that was brewed last month that is still fermenting away here. And of course, we're going to talk about Jitterbug Perfume, the crazy beet beer, that captured all the beautiful, sweetness and earthiness of beets without any of the things that we don't like about beets. We're going to talk about all of that, but first, streamline efficiency with Omega Yeast's Diacetyl Knockout series. The DKO series is comprised of 8 familiar yeast strains, engineered to knock out the formation of diacetyl before it starts. The strains now better. Available now for made-to-order pitchables at any volume. Contact Omega Yeast today at omegayeast.com. Also, ABS Commercial has been a full-service brewery outfitter for over 10 years. They're proud to offer brew houses, tanks, keg washers, and preventative maintenance parts to brewers across the country, as well as equipment for distilling, cider making, wine making, and more. They know the ins and outs of the brewing and installation process and can design the perfect setup for you, whether you're just starting out or looking to expand. Contact them today at sales@abs-commercial.com to discuss your customized brewery needs. ABS Commercial, we are brewers. And are you a brewery in planning, considering the purchase of an existing brewery, or are you working in the industry and kicking around the idea of realizing your own brewery vision? If any of these apply, go to breweryworkshop.com right now and check out our upcoming Brewery Accelerator, March 24th through 27th in Austin, Texas. Some of our favorite award-winning brewers are joining us to help share the knowledge you need, like Marcus Baskerville of Weathered Souls, Joe Morfeld of Pint House, Neil Fisher of Weldworks. Neil's flying down from Colorado to Austin for this event. This will be our only Brewery Accelerator event in 2024, so don't wait. Secure your spot now at breweryworkshop.com. And if you're interested in going, grab those tickets quick. I think we have like 2 or 3 as of this recording before it sells out. Let's talk about spontaneous and wild beer. And I'm going to speak about those as somewhat separate things because they're different avenues to get there. Nick, why don't you give us a primer on the program here at Arizona Wilderness? You all still have a dedicated facility for wild and sour beer here. And, and it's a pretty big commitment still, this style of beer.
It is. It's awesome that John and Pat are still very passionate about these funky, we call them mixed culture beers. They all most of them at least start off as mixed culture saisons. But our heart's been in these styles since day one. John and Pat were brewing some sour stuff way before it even became a thing, I think. And it might be gone now, but it might not be a thing anymore. But
let's keep it alive.
Yeah, exactly. Saison is not a crime.
The fact that it's not, the fact that it's maybe not as cool anymore makes it even more cool in my heart.
Exactly. Same. Absolutely. But so we
it's like the old hardcore thing. Like if you're not now, you never were.
Exactly.
Like, we're going to see who the true believers were.
Exactly. But yeah, so we still do spontaneous beers as well. We try to do at least 1 or 2 batches every year just to keep the pipeline going. As any brewer that brews those styles can tell you have to dump definitely a fair amount of those just to get to the good stuff. So yeah,
especially down here in Arizona,
Yeah.
where it's very, very dry and not quite as cold as.
Absolutely. So we take advantage of that. I mean, the state's vast and tons of different elevations within. So if we ever do need like
That's
a
true.
colder climate,
I shouldn't say it's not that cold.
Sure.
I have been stuck in a blizzard between Phoenix and Flagstaff,
Exactly.
driving home in like February from Tucson at one point. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. So a lot of the times, we've done these camp coolships is what we call them. We'll drive to higher elevations, so we get a little bit longer of a brewing season out of that. So, but also, I mean, kind of in the peak of winter here, it does get down to colder temps out in the desert, kind of away from the city, and sometimes even in the city. So last week we actually we did our first one in Gilbert. That's not at our brewery. Our first spontaneous beer. We went out to a riparian preserve and cast out some hot wort and amongst many different ponds and birds and all kinds of wildlife and all that. So really looking forward to that one kicking off here. But we've also gone out to the Superstitions kind of down here in the valley. And yeah, like I said, something we like to do every year. So.
Well, so I want to parse 2 of those things out. Maybe first we'll talk about spontaneous, and then we'll go back to most of these beers start as saisons, because I want to talk to you about how you build base recipes that can stand up to whatever that next process is. But let's first talk about your approach to spontaneous brewing, and let's maybe first start with the wort that you make for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So like most of our beers, if not all. The base grain is Sinagua barley, grown up in the Verde Valley, an awesome project, which we'll probably get into a little bit later in this podcast. So I'll skip over that. But yeah, Sinagua barley, just a pale Copeland varietal, makes up about 60%, 65, trying to follow a traditional, Belgian lambic grist. The other portion is about 35, 40% unmalted Sonoran white wheat, a varietal that's caught on pretty much, I see it nationwide even. There's a lot of different farmers growing it. Seems to grow well, but it is, kind of based here in the Sonoran Desert. So yeah, very simple grain bill, no acid malt. We go through, a traditional, a turbid-ish, mash schedule
So
there.
no pre-acidification. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, no
Okay.
pre-mash acidification or anything like that. And we just don't find it necessary.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the grist. And then we use whole cone hops that we kind of age in this back corner over here. Those go into every brew.
And your 15 barrel over there can handle a turbid mash, or is it a turbid-ish mash?
It's definitely a turbid-ish mash. And even this year, I was getting some pointers on how to do some just, high temp single infusion stuff, just some workarounds to, is all that labor truly necessary to create like a starchy wort? And we'll see. But I know there's some breweries that swear by it. So.
Yeah. What were you tweaking on that process?
Yeah, so that's something I might have tried before. I probably forgot. But just doing a high temp single infusion mash with a very short to no rest, just to not create too many fermentable sugars, keep it still pretty unfermentable to keep, for long periods of time. So
You say high temperature, how high?
I think it hit 165 on this one. So 165, and then just immediately Vorloff and start lautering, and kind of did a fast lauter, and then a really hot sparge. Yeah, I think 190 plus on the sparge, extracting polyphenols and tannins and all the stuff you typically don't want in a traditional mash. So yeah.
Bring me all the astringency that
Exactly,
you can.
yeah. And those help for longevity,
Yeah.
those things definitely precipitate out over time, and just give some other foods for whatever microbes we might capture or might be living kind of in the space even, or whatever it might be, whatever mystery and magic that actually is.
So you pull this mash, and then you boil a wort. After that, you mentioned a little bit of hops, but obviously not much.
Yeah, we use about kind of varies between 2/3 of a pound or a pound per barrel of whole cone aged hops. That's definitely not easy. We're not set up for whole cone hops on the hot side.
Yeah.
So we just use some muslin bags and whatever to
Do you
strain
age
it out.
them yourself?
We do age them ourselves. Yes,
Okay.
we've had a nice stockpile over the years.
I see that YCH Lambic blend is on a crazy sale right now.
Yeah.
In a per pound rate. If anyone wants some real bargains out there.
That's good to know, actually.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt to have some pellets on hand.
I
even.
saw that. It was like the 2020 Lambic blend that they had.
nice.
It was, yeah.
Nice.
And is that pelletized too, or is that like
know.
aged
I
whole
don't
and
know.
then pelletized? Yeah, sorry.
but it was like less than $1 a pound.
That's
it was,
awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anyway, not to distract.
Okay. But yeah, we age them all in house. We'll buy whole cone hops, a little bit extra every year. I like to use whole cone fresh hop. I like to use whole cone hops. In other brews, I just kind of like the other characteristics they provide for these mixed culture beers. But yeah, we'll stuff some in an old coffee bean sack, burlap sack in the back here, and kind of sit on them for a while.
Are there particular varieties that you use?
Not really. We've got all kinds of stuff. I really like Crystal is really nice. Sterling, Chinook have been really nice, and Cascade even. Just the simple stuff. We've even dry hopped a couple beers with some of these aged hops just to understand them a little bit better, and that's turned out some really interesting things. So,
In what way?
I don't know. It's just like this different,
You've done like clean beers with...
Not necessarily clean beers, but like mixed culture
Sure,
saisons,
sure.
dry hopped with aged hops, an ingredient maybe you typically just see in spontaneous beers. But I know there's definitely a trend amongst these kind of new wave of saison brewers, using aged hops more and more in their process for.
So
for
what you are
saisons.
saying, if I'm reading between the lines, you are adding some funky character
Absolutely.
to some of these other saisons that you make simply by using the same aged hops.
Absolutely, yeah. I digress a little bit.
No,
absolutely.
I'm just trying to get it all on the record,
Yeah.
and just let the record show. That's really interesting to me, and obviously, for years we're always trying to like pinpoint where are these flavor contributions coming? How are you getting that really pleasing funk that we all love about these, Belgian inspired beers? And obviously aged hops have always played a pretty significant part in there, but it's also possible to go overboard and get unpleasant, funk out of that too. How do you massage that?
Yeah, I mean, it's all sensory, right? You just gotta, smell what you're putting into the beer. You understand it a little bit more so than maybe before you add it. So, just knowing what you're getting into. So, rubbing the hops before we're adding it. So yeah, I pulled some aged hops for a spontaneous brew, and really like the characteristics out of those. They're presenting just kind of like dehydrated grapefruit vibes from a Cascade. I'm like, oh, this could be really fun. Let's throw it into a non-spontaneous beer at dry hop and kind of just see what happens. So, and I really like the results and look forward to doing more of those. So,
Do you test any of the alpha acid on it or anything? I mean,
never had that done.
I know the answer to that.
We don't have the equipment for that. But
Sure.
I mean, so those I think were like from 2018. So they're well aged. They're 5 years old.
Yeah.
And, we had pretty good results. We do test. We'll send out for IBU testing, like
Right.
After brewing with some of those hops, just to get an understanding from the finished beer or the wort. But no, yeah.
5 years. That's your good point there, or is there different ages for different hop varieties?
Yeah. The higher starting alpha, try to maybe use those a little bit later in their lifespan. But yeah, I think 3 years is kind of our average. We just happen to have some older stuff as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then how do you, are they just sitting out in bags open? And how do you, treat them around here in the brew house?
Yeah, absolutely. They're actually just kind of
And I love this
Yeah.
because it's such a this speaks to that kind of brewer element. When I was at Grimm in Brooklyn, they have bags tied up around the side of the warehouse, and it's just a cool, around the brew house. It's just such a fun brewery way to do this. So of course, obviously the Jester King barn, and I've walked upstairs, in that rickety barn with the, to see where Jester King's aging theirs. It all speaks to the romantic story about how you're processing these.
No, that's a good pointer. I mean, maybe I should display them a little bit more here in this space for customers.
You got to tell the story.
That's true.
Nick,
Very true.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just have them in burlap sacks, like I said, and just kind of they're just sitting out exposed to the ambient air, and they just hang out kind of by themselves for a while.
Do you ever give them a mix? I love that about Matt Tarpey at the Vale, his process where he has them in plastic bins, and every now and then they'll just turn them over.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're in burlap, I think it's pretty porous, so it might not have to. But if they were in plastic or something like that, that makes a ton of sense. Absolutely.
We move the stuff around here enough to where they get moved. periodically.
Exactly. There's enough shuffling going on. Absolutely.
It's fair.
But
and so you're, even though you don't know what the alpha is on these, you're generally just going by weight and okay.
Yeah, just a lot of we've like I
would
said,
seem to create some variability potentially in the the viability of certain cultures within this whole process.
100%. Yeah. But yeah, so the methodology, I mean, we've, like I said, done spontaneous beers. I don't know when the first one was. I know it was with Other Half. It was before I joined the company. The first spontaneous brew was with Other Half. But so we've been doing them for, I want to say 5+ years. So it's trial and
I
error.
remember all these press releases.
Yeah.
We've gone on a camping trip out in the mountains, and we, spontaneously. Yeah.
Some crazy stuff back in the day.
We get the PR. We've seen all the press releases. So you brew this beer, and then what's the next step? Your spontaneous process.
Yeah. So
I shouldn't say you brew the beer. You boil this wort with a half pound to a pound per barrel of hops.
Yeah, absolutely. So mostly following the Méthode Traditionnelle guidelines that were put out, a handful of years ago. I know that might have fallen out of popularity in some way, but I think it's a good set of rules to. I like rules.
Guidelines.
I like some guidelines. I like
maybe not rules. Maybe just guidelines.
Yeah. I like the chaos element, absolutely, but some sort of starting point or standardization of something just to riff off of is always fun for me. So follow those MT guidelines for the most part. We'll brew a turbid-ish mash, boil for 3 hours minimum. And then, kind of once, usually we're brewing these beers with a big group or
3 hours here in Arizona where it's this dry, and you've got a higher boil off rate than, say Brussels.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll definitely, lauter over, more than I think I need, just in case. 'Cause a lot of times, that's 3 hours minimum. So like I said, a lot of times these Camp Coolships are organized with other groups or, breweries or whatever. So we're trying to herd cats when we're trying to leave to go whatever our destination is. So it's gone as long as, 5-6 hours before everyone's put together and ready to hit the road. So that's always fun.
Oh, if your boil time depends on brewers' schedules and logistics, you're
Organized chaos.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're screwed.
Yeah, on
Okay.
collab day too, that's just basically everyone's just drinking from the early morning. So
Yeah.
You're going to get that extra amber reduced boil process, which
it's pretty remarkable.
Looks great. Too.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what makes some of this beer so good.
Yeah.
Create some of those Maillard characters and some of that lasting sweetness that helps balance out some of that funk.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then you load it up, you knock out into, without cooling into a tote.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll knock out, not bypass the heat exchanger, but, not activate any cold liquor, right into some stainless steel totes, just our intermediate vessel to, seal it off and not splash it all along the highway or the roads or whatever. And then once we're at our destination, just kind of
This is a full 15 barrel batch then? Or?
Not always. I've cut them down to about, 10 barrels, just to yield an even we ferment these primarily in puncheons. So just to yield like an even 8 barrels, give or take. It's a smaller batch than 15. I feel like the cooling rate's a little bit better. So that's my preference.
Sure.
We used to do 15s, and I think we've done smaller even, but 10 seems to be about the sweet spot, yielding about 8. So
you drive these into various places.
Yeah, we've gone
and you've got a mobile
over.
cool ship.
Yeah. So we'll basically just put these totes on the back of our back of a trailer. Holds up pretty well. We'll sandwich our cool ship here in the middle of the totes. Find our destination. Usually, sometimes we're going to some pretty crazy stuff, some crazy terrain. So
We're dropping pins in Google Maps all the time.
Yeah, lots of pins.
Usually Pat and John are scoping out the spot and then drop some pins and then everyone heads there. So
And then even while we're driving, sometimes that pin changes.
changes, yeah.
It's like, oh, there's World War III. There's a bunch of people shooting guns over here. So, so that's always, keeps you on your toes. But cool ships in the middle.
And
And
it's a commitment. I mean, you need to leave it out for, at least 12 hours or so, right?
Yeah. So we'll plan to get to our spot, before the sun goes down. Everyone has time we're camping. So everyone has time to set up their tents and their stuff and not having to use headlamps.
Sure.
And all that, avoiding all that. So we'll get there, call it 5 o'clock and we'll hang out till usually, 7 or 8, whenever people are actually up and alive the next morning. So, 12 hours plus. And usually that, we're scheduling this around the weather. So that's usually enough time to get it to, in the mid 60s or whatever, we'd like it to be at. So
Sure. So you've done these spontaneous fermentations at a number of different locations, whether it's up in the mountains, whether it's at a riparian preserve, as you mentioned, or whether they're in fruit orchards. I remember seeing those, in the past. Wherever this is, have you developed any kind of knowledge or repeatability, like to understand how the locations potentially impact those fermentations, the spontaneous fermentations, because at the same time, there's only a few data points in any given year. And so there's also the brew questions and there's all the other process things that can
a lot of
impact
variables.
that. And it's hard. It might be hard to pinpoint those certain those variables.
Yeah, there's so many variables. I didn't mean to cut you off there. So many variables. To be honest, I'd say no. We haven't really revisited many locations. We have done the Superstition Mountains back-to-back years now. So that will definitely be interesting. So looking forward to collecting more of that data, understanding like kind of what we are capturing a little bit better is something I look forward to expanding on in the coming years. So
I don't know if it's just power of suggestion, but the Stoic one we were trying a couple months ago. Stoic's apple orchard and cider place. Out towards Tucson?
Prescott, actually.
Prescott? Yeah. Okay, yeah. I swear there was some apple notes to it when we were tasting it, but it definitely could have been power of suggestion, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a good highlight, absolutely. That one is straight up pear and apple.
Yeah.
You know, and not, acetaldehyde kind of
Right.
tones there, but definitely some nuanced orchard fruit. So that's a really exciting one. And I think, so another one we're releasing actually tomorrow, is one we did in a citrus grove at Agritopia Farms, where we get all of our citrus. Big thing here in Arizona. So I think that one's got some fun orange, citrus kind of notes to it as well. But again,
So
power
much
suggestion
power
maybe.
of suggestion.
But you
Sure.
be the judge. I don't like to suggest tasting notes too much. But
Are there any commonalities to batches that have not made it through, or where you just have had to let those go, and some circumstances that you've been able to identify that really didn't set them up for success?
100%. Yeah. One common thing I'm finding, and I can't stand it, and I wish I knew what the source was, but it's just green olive character that just does not go away. And that has been the most frustrating one for sure.
And you haven't found a way to isolate that or understand what's driving it?
I haven't, unfortunately. So if anyone out there has some ideas, please reach out. But yeah, not a fan of that.
We'll get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
One thing you do is steam the crap out of your barrels so that everything is entirely neutral, right? That you are like, I was reading some the research keeps coming around every now and then. Well, spontaneous beer or lambic isn't really spontaneous. It's all being driven by the culture in the barrels. And obviously in my conversations with Belgian brewers, they have different opinions and different approaches on that. And someone like Pierre Tilcan, has very explicitly stated, like, we clean our barrels. We want different things in each of our barrels, and if it was all coming out of the barrels, we will get the same culture and wouldn't be able to blend from it. And what good would that do us as a brewer? Totally understandable, perspective from that, but then you also have the others who are like, yeah, we kind of clean our barrels. And there's a house culture to that. And so, this range that exists is interesting even within, the Belgian approach to lambic, but you are hardcore, cleaning everything out and trying to capture, the character of wherever you are.
Yeah, for sure. And I just wanted to speak to like the Camp Coolship a little bit. Going over it briefly, it kind of like sounds like, oh, it's just crazy. We're just kind of going out there, but it's pretty organized and it's fun, and it's a really hyper representation of Arizona wilderness, in my opinion, because it's not just the brew team or like other people. Like our chef made some patsies this last time we went out, and we're cooking there, and there's servers there and restaurant staff and everybody out there, and we're just kind of like all part of this mission. And yeah, the camping part of Arizona wilderness is kind of, it's a big thing. Camp Coolship was something I had known about and hadn't been a part of, so I was super stoked to be a part of it. But yeah, it's not just ragtag. Like he has that van down to a science, and everything fits perfectly onto the trailer, and it's a pretty neat operation to see.
It is cool. And a great company bonding experience.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Brad mentioned. We try to get as many people out as we can. So
how many times a season do you typically brew Coolship beers?
Yeah, I'm shooting for at least 2. More would be great. But yeah, at least 2. Yeah.
And that still produces a pretty decent amount of spontaneous beer for a year, given what current consumers actually purchase of that style of beer.
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. Unfortunately, I wish there were more. But yeah, that's pretty much what dictates it. Yeah.
So then what's your next step with these Coolship beers? Are you then releasing single season beers, or do you then, split those streams and blend some? Are you working into multi-year blends? Where do you take that spontaneous beer after that, that fermentation process and aging process?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now we're just kind of releasing them as seasonal things, kind of more like lambic than goose. Yeah. But eventually, our goal is to find the right beer and the right stock to create like a 3-year blend would be really fun, or, even more. I know there's some spontaneous breweries out there that are producing 5+ year old stuff, and that's amazing. That's really cool. But just having,
as long as it tastes good.
As long as it tastes good, exactly. But yeah, what
I've had
like
some 5-year blends where could have been a 3-year blend.
Yeah, a little harsh on the throat, maybe. Yeah,
but it's okay. Like I said, there were you have marketing stunts, but then you also want to just make beautiful beer, and so that's the more important thing. If you have it to blend and you can make great beer with it, great.
Absolutely. Yeah. But right now we're just showcasing kind of each region of Arizona that we go to, kind of by itself. So
interesting. And then do you then, after that process, are these all just released as that straight spontaneous beer, or are you doing ingredient blends then after the fact on any of these?
Yeah, right now, none of these have been fruited. That is something John actually specifically wants for next year. I think we're going to find some awesome Arizona fruit, maybe even some Arizona cherries, and do Creek-inspired beer.
Yeah.
So that's the goal there. But yeah, right now it's just been straight up, no blending even. We've done some beer decoupage, some blends of spontaneous beer and mixed culture saison. But other than that, it's just been straight spontaneous beer, no other adjuncts whatsoever.
All right. Well, I want to flip around and talk about the saison, approach that you also take, which complements this in a little different way, and that definitely includes those ingredients, like our 100 rated Jitterbug perfume that was a 2023 beer of the year. Did I mention that already? Am I repeating myself? Anyway, I want to talk about that, which is absolutely the Creative Flex side of what you do here. Before we do that, SS Brewtech was founded by a group of home and craft beer brewers dedicated to bringing an engineering-first approach to brewery equipment. SS brewhouses are used to formulate new beer recipes at some of the world's greatest breweries and are the cornerstone of many local breweries. To learn more about SS Brewtech's innovation list, head on over to ssbrewtech.com. Also, some brewers want their water profile to be that of their city, and that sounds great, except for one factor. Depending upon the city and the day, the water quality can vary 40 to 50%. So a Monday brew can taste very different from a Thursday brew. Savvy brewers know this, since beer is like 95% water. The best method is to start with the same water every time, and reverse osmosis gives you that power. Visit uswatersystems.com for a free expert analysis. All right. Not to keep harping on sour beer, but I shouldn't even say saison is not necessarily sour beer. I would not have defined the beers that you all gave us for that issue as necessarily sour per se. They had an acidic component to them. But talk about your saison process. How does that recipe start? And then, in particular, I'm curious how you build interesting bases, knowing that you're going to load in, some pretty heavy, characterful flavors, ingredients on top of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess much like the grist of our spontaneous beers, I like to keep everything pretty simple. Primarily, the Sinagua barley is at the core of all of these beers.
And I swear we're going to talk about that in a second, Brad. I swear it.
Brad's chomping at the bit.
No, you're all good.
No. Yeah, Sinagua barley is the base, and then some usually malted Sonora white wheat. I prefer that a little bit over the raw stuff for these quicker turn, I guess, saison and all that. Relatively quick, not as old as
a 4-month beer.
Exactly. And I'd say most of the stuff that comes out of these barriques and barrels here is in that 6-month range in oak. So give or take, widely. But yeah, Sinagua barley, 25% ish. Malted Sonora white wheat, sometimes raw is in there, sometimes some oats or rye or whatever, kind of character grains there. It kind of just depends, but primarily it's a pale malt.
It just depends on what you're feeling that day.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. How we want to, what we want to play around with. But so yeah, that's the base of them. I find that it gives great character. Something that we have been trying to incorporate a little bit more so is working with a local, newer local farm that's really pushing the regenerative organic certified grain. So they're growing up out west of here, I believe. I haven't visited the farm yet. They are newer, but they're bringing some ROC certified red Fife and blue Durham wheats, and all kinds of really fun stuff. So those I have been using kind of in replacing the Sonoran white wheat component of it. So 75% Sinagua and then 25% of those character grains. Just trying to, we'll get into ROC agriculture maybe a little bit, regenerative agriculture a little bit later. But yeah, something we really want to push going forward, and we're, I think, doing a great job of that.
How do those regenerative grains work, compared to your normal wheat?
Yeah, I haven't done enough of them to really say what distinct characteristics they're providing versus the wheat. It's just, something a little bit different, and a different color on the palate, when we are blending. Those beers going into oak are going to taste a little bit different than the other ones. So what I try to do here is create and brew just smaller batches, 15 barrel batches instead of double brews, which is what we typically do, just for efficiency. But I like to create and fill barriques just with as much diverse stock as I can, just again to create different colors to then play with. And I think kind of going into Jitterbug, it kind of speaks to that. So I was looking at the log that we kept for that, and it's, I think, 6 different base beers went into that. So none of it really from a single thread of beer. Which is kind of funny. Some more acid forward barrels, some pretty heavily hopped and therefore a little bit cleaner. And then, Chad and I, the assistant brewer here, we went through and picked through a bunch of stuff that we thought would fit the profile of those beets. So I think we came up with something pretty nice. But yeah, 5 different wort streams were made up that Jitterbug. So.
How much of that beer did you make to where you could pull that many different barrels to blend into it?
Yeah, so what we'll do, like I said, we'll brew 15 barrels and then, rack that all out into barriques and push and pull and pull stuff out. So sometimes we're left with oddball barrels that are on a partial rack or whatever. So that's just the way it ended up being, and the way it was convenient for us too. Sometimes blending is not just for taste. It's to be quite honest, it's for convenience. You don't want to use a partial barrel. You don't want to use something. I don't know. That's just my take on it.
You throw it on the bench there too, and then
exactly.
And all of a sudden now, that could add something to this, and here we go.
Absolutely, yeah. So
the interesting thing is that the answer to my question really is that through the blend and through pulling all of these things together at various ages and various kinds of wood character, all of these things. That's how you, kind of creatively process this idea of supporting those ingredients.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just for just trying to create a diverse stock. Absolutely. And then, what we're doing is, like you mentioned, just kind of bench topping stuff. So something I even learned from when I went to Tilken. It's a good example. He's got these brands of fruited goos that in lambics that he releases every year, but he always plays with what proportions and how much can you stretch something and still maintain the integrity of the beer, the integrity of the fruit. So we're constantly doing stuff like that, and just playing with something before we fully commit, I guess, is the responsible thing to do. Playing around with it. So
tell me then about getting great results out of using beets, because beets are a very polarizing ingredient.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, as we sat around the judging table and I listened to our judges responding to the beer, I kept hearing, well, I don't typically like beet beers.
That's perfect.
Or like normally like, these beet beers are just so earthy, and, talk to me about your creative process and finding balance there.
Yeah. I love changing people's minds like that. Just going back to Fair Isle, that's Fair Isle only brewed when I was there, at least, mixed culture saison. So we would hear it all the time. Like, oh, I don't typically like saison, but that's all you got. And these are pretty damn good. So, I love hearing that. And like I said, changing people's minds. So yeah, Jitterbug Perfume was a reimagining of a beer we did with beets a long time ago, and kind of fell out of favor, and we just kind of stopped making it. But since I've been back, we've kind of dug up some of these old brands that maybe fell by the wayside, and just kind of reimagining them instead of like saisons or wit beers, kind of reimagining them as these mixed culture projects. So yeah, we did a beet wit back in the day, and yeah, I wanted to go back to it because I loved drinking it. I loved the flavors we got out of it. So not just earthy beet notes, but a lot of just red fruit, raspberry kind of notes, and wanted to recreate that. So we used the same farm that we used many years ago, Steadfast Farms, and got some of their awesome beets that grow very well and in the colder months. So something fun and fruit-esque that's not necessarily fruit. So had our kitchen. Thankfully, we've got a kitchen that can do all the roasting. Roasted the beets up, and actually, the big secret, I guess, is after roasting, just peel off that outside skin layer, and that's where all that dirt and kind of funk and earth really, I think, resides. And once they're kind of cleaned up, they're just this beautiful, vegetable that's got a ton of flavor to offer. So
I think a lot of the times people don't like beets. They haven't eaten them in the right way.
Yeah.
We have a beet and apple salad. That's
so good.
It's a staple side here at Wilderness, and it's phenomenal. Local beets from Steadfast Farms. That's just right down the road. So I think it's how you prepare them. They're not the beets that,
Right.
your mom was leaving the skin on when she was cooking and forcing you to eat when you were 5. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I personally love beets. My wife hates them. So we have a very different opinion on those. But I love the jitterbug perfume. And I think, you're right. When you capture that kind of, that sweetness and that kind of character to them, there's something just so nice and round, and that they evoke all these other red fruit flavors, alongside of it. How did you then balance out that very strong beet flavor?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we, had an initial dosage rate in mind, and, threw them in the beer, kind of let it steep for a while. And man, the color, people drink with their eyes first.
Oh
and
my gosh.
The color on
That's
that
such
beer
a beautiful beer.
is just gnarly. It's so cool. And, the initial blend.
I made your PR guy send us a bottle. I didn't tell him why, but I needed we drunk the 2 bottles you had sent, but I had to have the color of that beer in our photography for that Best in Beer issue because it's such a beautiful color.
It's
and
crazy.
putting it in that clear glass was definitely the right move.
Yeah, big fan of that. So it's funny, the initial blend was, concentrated, and we're like, man, it's really, really nice, and I think we can kind of get a little bit more out of it. And it actually, we blended another barrique in, and I think it made the color pop even more somehow. And then just based on taste is kind of what Chad and I did there, and topped it up with a little tiny bit of lemon juice just to push the acid a little farther and sharpen it and kind of brighten it, and then a little bit of fresh ground coriander too, just to again brighten it up and maybe even accentuate some of those notes. So
you mentioned that like 5 or 6 different wort streams went into this beer. As you build a blend for that, what were you pulling from, and were there specific things you were looking for that could support that kind of strong flavor?
Yeah, absolutely. So when my second stint at Wilderness here, so kind of when I started a couple years ago again, we're kind of restarting our house mixed culture. So, when I got in, I just kind of wanted to refill some barrels and recreate some of these stocks. And I just kind of went all over the place. Picked out some specific saison yeasts. There's a couple different yeasts in there, a couple different lactose strains and some PDO and some Brett strains as well. So I just kind of created some different worts with varying IBU levels, and like I said, brewed 15 barrels of whatever, and tucked them away in barrels for a while, and again had all these different colors to play with. So we pulled from some pretty neutral stock, and then some of the lower IBU stuff turned pretty sour and actually ended up really nice, and threw those into the blend. And my personal preference is again, not to make sour beer. I don't think. It doesn't. It's not for me.
We've all grown up since then.
Yeah, exactly. These face ripping sour stuff. But you do like some acid, and
Sure.
you can always use a very sour barrel. Sharpens up a blend very nicely. So it's good to have those things on hand.
Or you can just add lemon juice too.
Yeah, or you can just add lemon juice. Yeah, locally grown lemons, of course. Of
man.
course.
All right.
So So yeah, we were. What was the question again?
No, that's a neat process. Obviously,
yeah.
I wanted to dive in and really understand this beer since it was one of our favorites of last year.
Yeah.
It was just so artfully crafted, and found its own balance. It had just that perfect amount of sweetness left that helped offset some of that little bit of that earthiness, and then those like you said, berry characters. As you mentioned, were really just beautifully expressed. I love this category of beer, and I know I've said it on our Best in Beer episode of the podcast because I find that this is the kind of sour beer that can go toe to toe with natural wine. And I, as a beer proponent, think that most natural winemakers are nowhere near as good at making acid forward beverages that capture all these flavors as beer makers are, because number one, they don't have as many tools at their disposal. They can't use all of the fruits and flavors and ingredients that the beer makers can. And so if people are looking for this, I think the beer, and again, I'm biased,
Sure.
as a beer guy, I'm biased,
Yeah.
but I love the clear bottle and that approach because it really shows all that off.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. That's kind of the market we're trying to hit. Because I do think, your natural wine, sparkling wine drinkers would appreciate some of our mixed culture stuff because the flavor profiles are very similar, and the fruit characteristics are very similar as well.
Yeah, I would say your funk characteristics are better, but
Yeah, very dry, somewhat funky.
Yeah.
Beers and wines and all that.
Well, let's completely shift gears here now, or I shouldn't say completely shift gears because we have hinted at talking about the Sinagua barley several points here. But let's talk about the Arizona wilderness approach to regenerative agriculture, about supporting grain growers here in the state who are using things like low water grains that can grow in the difficult climate here in Arizona. And also finding these ingredients, working with them to find ingredients that work within beer itself. Talk to me about that, Brad.
Yeah. I don't have 100% of the details, but the story, the way I've heard it, is the Nature Conservancy kind of approached Arizona Wilderness and was like, hey, if we get some farmers to plant some barley in place of corn and alfalfa and we get someone to malt it, would you guys use it? And John and Pat are always just kind of like, whatever's local. Yeah, sure, we'll do it. And so they got Chip up at Sinagua was the maltster. And I believe the first place they were malting was an old drive-through car wash that they had purchased. And I've looked through the brew logs and there was some major trials and tribulations when they were first going through this malt. There was dumped batches, there was low extract. But Wilderness kind of stuck with it and kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. And then finally Sinagua figured it out. Got to a point to where we could use 100% Sinagua for everything, and tons of these farmers up in the Verde Valley. Do you know, Nick, if it was it the Nature Conservancy?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and the goal was to keep water in the Verde Valley.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
and I'm
cool.
fuzzy on this too. Yeah, the goal was to keep water in the Verde and basically swapping alfalfa out because it's a high water usage during the summer months.
Yeah. So they swapped alfalfa with Copeland 2-row. Sinagua was malting it, and it was a pretty laborious process to get through, but they made it, and then they were consistently making good grain and kind of created this local grain economy to the point now to where Sinagua put in some new, they got some
alfalfa is just feed, right? Animal feed.
Feed, yeah.
For the most part,
yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
brewing barley would be a higher value crop for a lot of those farmers.
Exactly, yeah. Higher value crop, and it's keeping more water into the soil and not pulling from the Verde. It seemed like a good project for them, and they wanted to be on board with it. And it got to the point to where Sinagua was doing so well that they got some outside funding and they upgraded their facility. And now they're at the point to where they're kilning malts too. To kind of turn this all around, it wasn't just them they were working with. They're working with Oatman Farms, which is the opposite way. I think they're southeast. And they're doing wheat, regenerative organic wheat specifically, which Sinagua was malting. So they just kind of created this whole interconnected Arizona malt. So
It's really interesting how brewing can be at the center of this, whole agricultural product or project that also changes the way that everyone from growers and maltsters approaches ingredients made here too. So now how much of this Sinagua barley do you use?
It's 100% of our base malt.
100% of your base malt is all. Wow.
The only exception is Kernza, our Kernza project with Patagonia, where that has to be organic malt, and Sinagua isn't certified organic.
Okay.
But that's the only beer that we're not using it in.
Well, that's really interesting. So, I mean, you're also now then, moving brands that people have some expectations around, some classic beers that your customers at Arizona Wilderness know. How did then using this barley, did it change any of that or change any of the approaches in the brew house around some of these things?
Yeah, I fully think so. I think that was part of the growing process. It was a years long thing where I think they were using some Sinagua and then supplementing with whatever domestic two-row they were using before. And it got to the point to where there was enough of it to where all the house beers were made with that. And it's a pretty neutral malt. It has its own characteristics, but it's not far off from a raw or two-row or anything like that.
Yeah, it's definitely come a long way. I was I was here when we got the first few shipments of the early Sinagua barley, and yeah, like Brad mentioned, it was all over the map, COA wise. Like it, very high protein, very tough to lauter sometimes, tough to convert. pH was all over the place. And then, they dialed their stuff in a little bit more. But and as far as flavor profile, it's definitely more grassy and just kind of different. So we started just blending in
grassy and different. Yeah, tell me more
different.
about that.
I don't recall. This was years ago. I just remember it being, it wasn't so off-putting that, customers flipped out.
Sure.
But, internally, we definitely noticed a little bit of a difference. But, I mean, over the past few years now, they've really dialed things in, and their malt COAs are a lot more consistent.
Yeah, it's super consistent. We don't notice, I didn't notice coming here any different from any other two-row. And on top of the two-row, we're using Arizona Sonoran white wheat in all of our hazies and whatever else we're putting wheat into.
So it's really a drive to put as much Arizona-grown grain into these beers for the most part, other than I imagine a few specialties that no one is making around here where you have to.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to use it local. We're going to try to source our ingredients local first and foremost. And we do get our specialty grains from other places.
Sure.
But Sinagua just started kilning and roasting grains, so we actually just got pale chocolate malt, a light crystal, and a biscuit malt that we're gonna make our chocolate bunny porter with. So
interesting. I think the other cool piece about this is the way that I've talked to plenty of brewers over the years about this. Like Brendan from Odell. The key thing to changing the agriculture is brewers supporting it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that a hop grower has can't necessarily put the resources into something new or a new variety unless there's a market for it, and the sponsors help bring that along. In this sense, in a lot of ways, it was Arizona Wilderness, and I imagine there's probably other brewers here in Arizona also kind of supporting and basically sponsoring this whole project, taking this and creating an economic value for this, so that both the growers and the maltster could come along, and get up to that kind of speed to where it could become a thing. But it would have been really easy to kill it in its infancy, just because it wasn't kind of going exactly the way you wanted it to.
No, for sure. The dedication and the commitment was definitely there from the beginning. And we're not the only one using Sinagua now.
Right.
I think we're the biggest single customer, but I know Dark Sky is using it up in Flagstaff. Wren House uses it a little bit too. But Wilderness was the backbone of creating that local Arizona grain economy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talk to me a little bit about Kernza. That's another thing that you just mentioned, this perennial grain that Patagonia has been really, big behind. And we've seen a number of brewers brewing Kernza beers now. Obviously, Patagonia is trying to build a good network there. And, even folks like Russian River have brewed a Kernza beer. But you threw some in the fridge here. Talk to me about brewing with that grain. And
so Kernza is a perennial wheat grain. It's a regenerative organic where it's being grown. And Patagonia Provisions, the food side of Patagonia, approached Arizona Wilderness and a bunch of other breweries, Sierra Nevada, Topa, Aslan, I think.
Yep. I think it's just like 10 breweries.
Just 10 breweries, 10 they're all kind of regionally focused, who kind of had the same ideals as Patagonia. And it was all like, hey, everyone make this lager with it to kind of promote using regenerative organic ingredients. And it's an interesting grain. It looks completely different than normal wheat. It's like long and dark brown. And it has kind of a nutty character to it. Brewing with it, it's fine. It doesn't seem to lauter any different. We're using it at about 20% in the Kernza lager that we're doing. And the taste is good. It's a phenomenal lager.
Why 20%? Is that something that someone else has decided, or is that?
I think so. The first batch had been brewed when I started, but there's only a certain amount of it out there.
Right.
So they were kind of trying to keep that a little bit low. That's again how we were talking about Sinagua.
And it is a wheat, not a barley. So.
It is a wheat, yeah, and that's the only beer that we make where the base malt is not
right.
Is not Sinagua. We use organic malt for that. But I think about 20% organic hops.
So you haven't made a 100% Kernza beer yet?
No, we haven't tried.
That'd be very expensive.
It'd be super. The grain is not cheap. Yeah. I'm hoping it does have some really nice nutty characters. So as more people get this and the economy for this specific grain grows, I kind of wanted to maybe make a brown ale with it or something like that. But
interesting.
I'm not sure too many people would buy it, but it's something I want to make with it.
Brown ales. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. A good Patagonia story around brown ale would probably help sell it a little bit.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
No, the pictures of it are amazing when you see the roots that go down like several feet underground, sometimes even 6 feet underground, and and how this grain, again, doesn't have to be sown each year. It's a perennial grain, so it grows back, obviously, when it comes to that agriculture, keeping all the nutrients in the ground, and not just open, finding that kind of biodynamic approach where other crops are creating this is necessary with some of these annual crops, but these perennials, they can do all of it themselves.
Yeah, the visuals with Kernza are incredible. Like you said, the root structure, how deep it goes down. You can see there's pictures of the soil moisture in fields with it and without it, and over time how moist the fields stay with this grain in it.
That's great. I'm curious about that. Any other interesting approaches, to grain and ingredients that that you all use with this local focus that you have?
Yeah, I think it's kind of. I talk with Chip up at Sinagua a lot, and he was kind of like, "Hey, we're going to start roasting malts. What do you want?" So it's a lot of back and forth, and talking with their maltster up there, Russell. Just kind of, he asked me, he's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "Well, what do you make that's good? Like, what are you interested in malting, in kilning?" So it's just those conversations, and that's kind of how we approach ingredients here too. Have
you given them specs, for some of these, what you would love to see out of some of these roasted malts?
I did give them some basic color specs for the darker stuff, but it's kind of just tell me what it is, and I can build a recipe around that. Yeah.
So. Interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else there on the grain side that's interesting, or even amongst other ingredients, citrus or other things grown here in Arizona?
Yeah, the other interesting grain thing is Oatman Farms, like I said, is doing some regenerative organic wheat too, and we just brewed. It's in one of our fooders over here. We're going to brew a wheat beer with it, or we brewed a wheat beer with it. Sinagua-based malt, regenerative organic malt that's grown at Oatman, malted at Sinagua with local citrus peel. So, yeah.
How do you test these things? Or do you just, are you small enough that you can just give it a whirl?
Yeah, we're small enough we can give it a whirl, but also it's looking at the COA and kind of cross-referencing that, and kind of, there's always a first batch and never 100% sure if it's going to come out, but...
Then it comes to wood notes and we throw it in barrels.
Then we throw it in barrels, yeah.
No, that's not true. Not all the time.
When you look at those COAs, what are the things that stand out to you as a brewer, and what do you then adjust around? What are some of the key factors that you're always looking at?
Yeah, the friability, the moisture content, the enzyme potential in the malt. Right. Yeah, that's the biggest one that I look at. So
make sure that it's actually going to be able to
convert. Yeah.
Cool. Maybe we'll zoom out a little bit and talk about big picture with Arizona wilderness. Number of years under, for the Arizona Wilderness brand. Nick, this is your second turn. You're back at Arizona Wilderness now.
Yeah.
Brad, you're enjoying your 9 months into head brewer for Arizona Wilderness. You're embarking on a new brewery to kind of add production capability here, so to be able to make and package more beer. What's on the near-term horizon for Arizona Wilderness? What's the long-term vision? And what does everyone here at Arizona Wilderness hope to accomplish, in 5 years?
I mean, the big thing is, from a production standpoint, is getting our new facility up and running and operating. We've been brewing out of this brew pub for 10 years, so it's seen some time and it's had some wear and tear put on it. As a company overall, we're not looking to take over the world, but we do want to expand within Arizona and kind of spread the message of sustainability and conservation through beer as much as we can, while still providing a quality product and quality experience at our two locations.
Well, that sounds like a great place to bring this to a close. Choose G&D Chillers on your next expansion or brewery startup and receive 1 free year of remote control and monitoring. ProBrew's engineering team prides itself on providing true customized turnkey solutions. Old Orchard is the go-to source for fruit-forward ingredients for some of the biggest names in the craft brewing landscape. Omega Yeast Diacetyl Knockout Series is comprised of 8 familiar yeast strains engineered to knock out the formation of diacetyl before it starts. ABS Commercial are proud to offer brewhouses, tanks, keg washers, and preventative maintenance parts to brewers across the country. Secure your brewery accelerator spot now at breweryworkshop.com. SS BrewTech is dedicated to an engineering-first approach to brewery equipment and powers R&D at some of the world's greatest breweries, and build consistency with a reverse osmosis system from uswatersystems.com to start with the same water every time. If you've enjoyed this episode and any others, go to beerandbrewing.com, click on that subscribe button, and support us and our mission to bring great brewing content to you both through the magazine and through the podcast. And of course, you can read what we say about things like Jitterbug Perfume, a perfect 100, and one of our beers of the year for 2023. Nick, Brad, thanks for joining me. Brad, if people want to learn more about Arizona Wilderness, where do they find you on in real life and out there on the internet?
The main place I'm active with work stuff is probably Twitter. So Miles_Bradley. For Arizona Wilderness is ArizonaWilderness.com, or our Instagram, which if you just search Arizona Wilderness on there, you'll find it. You'll learn all about us.
Fantastic. We're coming right here to the Brew Pub in Gilbert, or a downtown Phoenix tap room, and soon to be another production facility.
Yeah. Or a wood note cellar too, when we open it up.
Please come by.
Right here where we are now. Anyway, thanks. It was great talking with you guys about brewing. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
This podcast has been brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine, for those who love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.